Boros value. Kinda seems weird, right? Boros is not really known for its value, but that's exactly what this commander is. I will say, looking at Joshua, he doesn't look like anything impressive. He enters the battlefield, draws 2 cards, discards 2 cards, but his bread and butter is when you actually flip this guy. It's going to give you a saga that does mediocre stuff until you get to reanimate 6 CMC worth of creatures from your graveyard, which is what we're going to be trying to do. We're going to be trying to trigger that as many times as possible, as much as possible. Additionally, we do have a couple lines in the deck that just allows us to do this infinitely. Now, this is kind of Rube Goldberg machine territory. We need several cards to make this work, so this is not a combo deck by any means, but we can get to a scenario where we're generating enough mana and getting enough value off of our graveyard to where we can immediately flip this guy, proliferate 2 times, and then instantly generate 6 more mana to do it again, which is kind of cool in a Boros deck. Again, not the goal of the deck, but just the fact that that deck, or the deck, has that option is pretty cool to me. So let's click on that whatnot link, get your free $15, get 10% off all of your Tolarian Library proxies. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. I know it's super annoying, but to show I appreciate you guys commenting, and subscribing, I will be replying to all the comments down below, and let's get right into this deck tech. Let's talk about what everyone's here to see. Infinite flips, baby. The first thing we need is 2 proliferations after we flip him to his Phoenix side. Norn's Choirmaster is by far the best way to do this. It's a 5 CMC creature that has first strike and says whenever a commander you control enters the battlefield or attacks, you get to proliferate. Pretty solid, right? We just flip our commander, it proliferates and brings us to the second chapter, but we need to do that twice. The number one way we can do that is just creating a token copy of this guy. The Jolly Balloon Man is 3 CMC, and we can tap him and create a token that's a copy of another target creature we control, except it's a 1/1 red balloon creature in addition to its other types and colors. It's also going to have flying and haste, which we really don't care about. I mean, the haste can kill a table because we are sacrificing this and reanimating it, so we can make enough hasty of these angels to kill the entire table, but that's neither here nor there. Another way to do it is Preston the Vanisher. It's a 4 CMC rabbit wizard that says whenever another non-token creature enters the battlefield under your control, if it wasn't cast, create a token copy of that creature. It's a 0/1 white illusion. Then we have an ability that's 2 mana to sacrifice 5 illusions and exile target non-land permanent. What's awesome here is what we can do is we can get our commander to its last step, and we can actually bring back the Norn's Choirmaster with its ability to bring 6 CMC of creatures back from our graveyard, and that's going to net us 2 of them if we have Preston on the battlefield already. Molten Duplication is also super simple. All we do is cast it and boom, we've got 2 Choirmasters and we're ready to start proliferating. After that, we need to generate at least 5 mana, that way we can instantly flip our commander again, because why would we only want his ability once, right? Atsushi the Blazing Sky, Skirk Prospector, Impulsive Pilferer, and then any of your altars, whether it be Ashnod's or Phyrexian, is going to do just that. Atsushi says whenever he dies, you get to generate 3 treasure tokens, or you can exile the top 2 cards of your library and play those until end of turn, but 9 times out of 10, we want those 3 treasure tokens. This means if we're sacrificing him with an Ashnod's altar that says sacrifice a creature, generate 2 treasure tokens, that's going to be 5 mana. So just with Atsushi and Ashnod's altar, we've already achieved the amount of mana we need to flip our commander an infinite amount of times. And then if we have 2 Norn's Choirmasters, we're off to the races and we're killing the entire table. And there's really no shortage of ways to generate this 5 mana in this deck. It just takes more pieces the more convoluted it gets. We can even use something like the Balloon Man with Skirk Prospector, Impulsive Pilferer, and then something like an Ashnod's altar. What's going to happen here is we can get the Balloon Man, use the Skirk Prospector mana to activate the Balloon Man to create another token copy of Impulsive Pilferer, sack all 3 of those to the Ashnod's altar, and that's going to generate 8 mana. So we can get pretty weird with it, honestly. Ardent Elementalist and Pinnacle Monk are going to allow us to bring an instant and sorcery card back from our graveyard to our hand, and then we're on Mana Geyser, a card that allows us to add an amount of red mana for each tap land our opponents controls. 9 times out of 10, this at least adds 15 mana to your mana pool. So after that, all we need is something like a Phyrexian altar to sacrifice the Pinnacle Monk or the Ardent Elementalist for our white mana, and boom, again, we've achieved infinite Phoenix flips. Pendant Prism. I like this. It's 2 CMC, it has Sunburst, so it enters the battlefield with a charge counter on it for each mana type spent to cast it, and then we can remove a charge counter from it to add a mana of any color. Remember, the goal is to proliferate as much as possible in this deck, so whenever we're flipping our commander and proliferating twice, we are putting 2 charge counters on Pendant Prison. This means we just need to generate at least 3 generic mana, and then Pendant Prison is going to be able to pay for the red and the white. Norn's Choirmaster is also not our only way to proliferate twice. Now, it is the cleanest way, but it's not the only way. We can also use cards like Staff of Completion. It's 3 CMC, and we can tap it to pay 3 life and proliferate. Notably, remember, the Phoenix is gaining us 6 life on both of those first 2 sagas, so you'll end up gaining 12 life every time you flip him, so the life lost here, we do not have to worry about it. It does, however, cost 5 mana to untap Staff of Completion, so I would only recommend doing this if we're generating a ton of mana. Good thing this deck can generate a ton of mana. It's going to cost you a total of 15 mana to pull this off, but what's going to happen here is we flip our commander for 5, we pay 5 to untap the staff, we proliferate, we pay another 5, and then we proliferate again. There's a couple different ways we can make this happen, which is kind of insane. Remember, we are on Mana Geyser, which 9 times out of 10 is going to generate us 15 mana. We're also on There and Back Again. This allows us to generate a 6/6 legendary Smog token that says whenever it dies, we get to generate 14 treasure tokens. So if we're able to duplicate it with something like the Jolly Balloon Man, it's going to instantly die to the legendary rule. When that happens, we're going to end up with 14 treasure tokens, so then we just have to sacrifice the Jolly Balloon Man to something like a Phyrexian Altar or Altar of Dementia, and then boom, we got there. 15 mana. We're ready to flip our commander infinite amount of times. Contagion Engine is also going to make an appearance on the list. You can pay for, tap this artifact, and then you get to proliferate and proliferate again. The only problem is being able to untap the Contagion Engine. We are on Felidar Guardian that can do this though. Felidar Guardian says whenever Felidar Guardian enters the battlefield, you may exile another target permanent you control, then return that card to the battlefield under its owner's control. So we reanimate it, we blink our Contagion Engine. Our Contagion Engine is going to put a negative counter on each creature target player controls. Notably, if we're blinking this over and over again, our opponents are not going to have any creatures left after this, which is pretty cool. And then we're able to tap our Contagion Engine for 4 mana to proliferate twice. Now, this doesn't go infinite. It is pretty mana intensive, and since we're having to reanimate the Felidar Guardian, that does limit us on what we can reanimate doing this. So because of that, it's not exactly infinite, but it is going to be a lot, and it's still going to be pretty solid in the deck because of that ETB that effectively allows us to wipe out our opponent's board. There's also cards that make it to where we don't have to generate as much mana per flip, like Treasonous Ogre. This is a card that allows us to pay 3 life to add a red mana to our mana pool. Remember, every time we flip our commander, if we get through both of its chapters, we're gaining a total of 12 life. That means we can add 4 red mana to our mana pool with Treasonous Ogre with no downside every time we flip our commander. Zerda is also very useful here as well. This is going to make it to where activated abilities cost 2 less to activate, so now we only have to generate 3 mana to flip our commander instead of 5, which is pretty massive here. Thermopod is essentially another Phyrexian Altar or Altar of Dementia, but it's a 5 CMC creature that says sacrifice a creature, add 1 red mana to your mana pool, and we're also on Barber Right. This is a 2 CMC legendary creature that says sagas you control have read ahead, so we can flip our commander and then instantly go to the 3rd chapter. We don't have to worry about any proliferation, we just have to worry about generating that 5 mana to instantly flip them back over, or 3 mana if we have Zerda. Now that the flipping shenanigans is over, let's get into the other part of the deck. We're going to be talking about the 6 CMC creatures we're going to be reanimating. Aurelia the War Leader is perfect here. Whenever she attacks, you're going to untap all your creatures and get an additional combat phase. If we can't go crazy and start flipping our commander a lot, Beating Face is going to be the next best option. Clive was an instant include for me. It's 6 CMC. Whenever he enters the battlefield, you get to discard your hand, then draw cards equal to your devotion to red. He also has a flip side. We can flip him over for 6 mana, which sounds like a lot, but it's not in this deck because this guy's also insane with 2 Choirmasters on the battlefield or just proliferating twice. We flip him, he gets the ability to fight something, and then his next 2 chapters add 4 red mana to our mana pool. And that's right, that's enough to not only pay for his ability to flip him again, it's also an extra 2 red red mana that we can then utilize to put into our commander's ability. So it's kind of like having a Zerta on the battlefield. We now only need to generate 3 mana to start flipping our commander again. And then we're left with that amazing ETB that keeps drawing us into the cards we need and putting the cards that we need to reanimate into our graveyard to be reanimated. This guy's perfect in this deck. Inferno Titan has also continued to do insane things for me. He's 6 CMC and says whenever he enters the battlefield or attacks, he deals 3 damage divided as we choose among 1, 2, or 3 targets. Angel of Indemnity also seemed perfect here. It's 6 CMC, he has flying, he has lifelink, he's a 5/5, and then it says whenever he enters the battlefield, we get to return a permanent card with mana value 4 or less from our graveyard to the battlefield. So we're reanimating a massive creature to reanimate something smaller. I love it here. I love it so much that I'm also including Sun Titan, a 6 CMC creature that says whenever he attacks or enters the battlefield, you get to return target permanent card with mana value 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. This guy's going to be amazing at reanimating all of our altars in the deck. Atali Primal Storm, this guy pairs amazingly with extra combat steps. He says whenever he attacks, each player exiles the top card of their library, and then you can cast any amount of spells from among the cards exiled with him without paying their mana cost. Beza also seemed perfect. 4 CMC, it says when Beza enters the battlefield, create a treasure token if an opponent has more lands than you gain 4 life if an opponent has more life than you, and you create 2 blue fish creature tokens if an opponent has more creatures than you. You also get to draw a card if an opponent has more cards in hand than you. So this guy does a little bit of everything, and he's really good, especially with our altars, and if we are able to generate those fish, which if we do have an altar on the battlefield, we can kind of guarantee that we're always going to generate those fish because we can just sack enough creatures to where one of our opponents has more creatures than us. Ayo the Dawn Sky has an insane die triggers. It says whenever he dies, you get to look at the top 7 cards of your library and put any number of non-land permanent cards with total mana value 4 or less from among them onto the battlefield. This guy's absolutely amazing at finding you the key pieces you need to make the deck do the crazy things. He also has another die trigger. He says whenever he dies, you can also put 2 1/1 counters on each permanent you control that's a creature or a vehicle, but honestly, we're probably just sticking to the first die triggers, finding our key pieces, and going off. Both Nehebs are going to get included in this deck. The first one adds an amount of red mana equal to the amount of life our opponents have lost this turn. Notably, the Phoenix side can make our opponents lose a ton of life very quickly. Neheb the Dreadhorde champions 4 CMC, and he says whenever he deals combat damage to a player, we may discard any amount of cards in our hand, then draw that many cards and generate that much red mana. So again, we get to draw a ton of cards here, and we're generating a massive amount of mana. Guardian Skellord is another awesome reanimation piece to this deck. He's 5 CMC, he has backup, so whenever he enters the battlefield, we can put a 1/1 counter on a creature, and he's going to gain his ability until end of turn, and then he also has flying. Whenever this creature attacks, return target non-land permanent card with mana value X or less from your graveyard to the battlefield, where X is this creature's power. Very good, especially whenever you add extra combat steps into the mix. Queen Kayla seemed perfect as well, 3 CMC. We can tap her to discard all the cards in your hand, then you get to draw that many cards. You may choose an artifact or creature card with mana value 1 you discarded this way, then you do the same for the artifact or creature card with mana value 2 and mana value 3. So she reanimates the cards we're discarding, and she allows us to discard the cards we need to get into our graveyard. Again, super perfect here. Goblin Engineer is also going to be an amazing card draw engine and an amazing way to find all of our key pieces. He enters the battlefield and we can grab an artifact from our deck and instantly throw it into the graveyard. Notably, our altars are going to be the first thing we're going for in this deck. Another thing that's really good is Brass's Tunnel Grinder, because we can loop it in and out of the graveyard to keep discarding our hand and drawing into more and more cards, because he also has an ability that allows us to tap him and sacrifice an artifact to return another artifact from our graveyard to the battlefield of mana value 3 or less. Alhamrad's Archive is 5 CMC, and it says if you would gain life, you gain twice that much life. Insane with our Treasonous Ogre. It additionally says whenever you would draw a card, except the first card you draw each of your turns, you get to draw 2 cards instead. So now we're drawing 4 cards off of our commander's ETB instead of just 2. This card gets absolutely insane in the deck, so if you can get it on the battlefield early, you're going to be set up. Altar of Dementia just seemed solid here. You can sacrifice a creature, then you're going to mill cards equal to that creature's power. It's just really good at getting the key pieces we need to in the graveyard. The rest of the deck is just going to be a solid discard and draw strategy. We have Will of the Jeskai, allows you to discard your hand and draw 5 cards, and it allows you to kind of have a Past in Flames. Reforge the Soul, you discard your hand, you draw 7 cards as Miracle. Path of the Pyromancer, 5 CMC, you discard all the cards in your hand, then add a red mana for each card discarded this way, then you're going to draw that many cards +1, so this is actually card advantage and generates a ton of mana. There is also one more infinite combo in the deck that kind of just snuck in there, and I kind of recognized it in post. It's Preston the Vanisher and Felidar Guardian. What happens here is if we reanimate Felidar Guardian from our graveyard, he allows us to blink something, right? And then Preston's going to give us 2 Felidar Guardians because we reanimated it from the graveyard with our commander, and Preston allows us to get a 0/1 spirit token copy of anything that we don't cast that enters the battlefield, or any creature, right? So what happens is you're going to end up with 2 Felidar Guardians. The token Felidar Guardian can actually blink the original Felidar Guardian, while the original Felidar Guardian blinks our commander. This allows us to draw our entire deck, because what happens is Felidar Guardian is going to re-enter and we get another token, and that's just an infinite amount of Felidar Guardians, an infinite amount of our commander's ability to draw and discard, and that's just going to find us the key pieces we need to win the game. All we really have to do is find Anger, discard it, and our opponents are dead. Anyway, guys, that's going to do it for the deck tech. I hope you guys enjoyed. I just launched a new Patreon. Go ahead and check it out. I think the options are pretty solid. The #1 option I've gotten is a Deck Doctor request. So now you guys can sign up for the Deck Doctor tier, and I will help you guys finish out those brews you guys have been working on.